Hello and welcome. My name is Ken Cadet and I am here with the Entrust Cybersecurity Institute. Today we are very happy to be joined by Sean Huntley of VMware. Hello, Sean.
Hey Ken, nice to be here.
Thank you for being here. So I think we have a lot to talk about, but why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do at VMware?
Yeah, so I'm a senior product manager in the office of the CTO at VMware, specifically in the X Labs group, which is focused on near-term innovation for the company. And so what we focus on is really interesting technical projects that we want to sort of accelerate into customers' hands.
Tell me a little bit about the kinds of problems you're tackling for customers.
Yeah, so one of the big things that we've been working on recently is the adoption of post-quantum cryptography and more so the need for crypto agility across the enterprise. This is a newfound threat that we're seeing, and uh, the transition is going to be really, really difficult for a lot of customers. We see cryptography baked really deeply into applications, and how organizations are going to manage that transition and change is going to be really challenging. And so we're trying to help our customers transition to these new algorithms, and along with Entrust, who are helping us out as well.
Terrific. Well, to step back for a second with me. So, this is, so the idea is that quantum computers are going to come soon and will be able to break the traditional foundation of encryption, right? RSA-based encryption, right? And and that's what everybody has in their companies today. So, like, why is that a hard transition? What's going on there?
Yeah, so the really hard challenge there is that our cryptography libraries are baked so deeply into our application stack in our software supply chains that a lot of the time we're going to have to rewrite our applications to make sure that we are using new algorithms. These new algorithms are not similar to RSA. They're going to have different performance trade-offs. The certificate sizes are going to be larger. And so that level of transition is going to be complex for organizations to navigate.
Makes sense. So tell me a little bit about, you talked about this project that you're working on, that you're exploring. What kind of problems is that intended to solve?
Yeah, so we're working in the office of the CTO on a project called Project Newcastle. And Newcastle is really around how do we help this transition framework and how can we build policy-based controls into our applications so that we can automate the transition of cryptography from one algorithm to the next based on policies that our customers might have. You can imagine different transitions based on policy frameworks in different countries. So in Europe, you might want to support different cryptography than in the US, let's say. And so, how do we build in this organizational level change and being able to change based on policy is something that we're really interested in. And so, helping that software supply chain across our customers' applications to transition their crypto is a really hard challenge, and that's something we're trying to address with Project Newcastle.
Well, and so, like, how big a project is that? So it sounds like it sounds like it shouldn't be that hard, right? You automate a transition, but like, how big a project? How long will it take? How long will it take with or without these tools?
Yeah, so these tools address sort of some parts of the problem, right? Um, at the moment, our project is really focused on communication level crypto agility. Like, how can we transition our communication fabrics? So, we're using existing public key cryptography at the moment, and how do we move to a quantum safe communications across our networks, right? And so that's one piece of the puzzle. For organizations that need to change, there's actually far more to do, including how do we make sure that we're securing our data at rest, not just data in motion. And so you think now where cryptography is used across your applications, across your customer data. There is so many places where we use cryptography, and to be secure, if we need to change every single one of those touch points, it's a gargantuan task. In fact, we see legislation coming out of the US that's requiring federal government to transition its cryptography, and they're giving a timeline of roughly a decade to try and get these critical systems over. That's the sort of size of the task that's ahead.
So the size of the task is about a decade. About how far out do we think quantum computers are right now?
Yeah, quantum computers are, everyone's got a, a horse in the race, to so to speak, and it's hard to call it. A lot of experts will say around 10 years. Some will say more, some will say less. But actually, the timeline is relatively important. But the threat exists now because of what's called a harvest now, decrypt later attack, whereby uh, bad actors can go and capture data that is being transmitted now and then decrypt it later once they have access to a quantum computer. And so, for any long lived information asset, you think healthcare records, social security numbers, those sorts of data has a really long term sensitivity. And so, protecting that data and critical information assets early is going to be a number one priority.
It makes a lot of sense. So obviously, there's a lot of competing priorities in every IT organization, in every enterprise, in every government institution. I know that zero trust is a big priority right now. How does a threat like PQ get attention given all these things that are going on? Is there a benefit to preparing for PQ now?
Yeah, for sure. So, like I said, that threat that's coming is really challenging to transition, and so to best prepare now, it's going to be important for uh, executives and companies to start building out action plans. So, identifying what cryptography is our company even using, what policies already exist, and how can we start thinking about a transition. And like you said, this plays in very well with zero trust. In fact, the Project Newcastle work has been integrated with a VMware product called Tanzu Service Mesh. And so a service mesh is really going to provide that zero trust between microservices on a network. And so we've been thinking a lot about how zero trust and PQ really form together. And so without encryption, without really strong encryption, your zero trust frameworks aren't going to work. So that's like encryption is the backbone of all security, right? And so that's where we're seeing a lot of interest from our customers in how do we get zero trust and PQ as well.
And when you talk to customers, I mean, what kinds of things are you hearing? Are you hearing people taking the threat seriously? Are they where are people on this on the spectrum of readiness?
Yeah, so on the spectrum of readiness, I'd say most customers are looking at the identification challenge at the moment
Hmm.
of where is my crypto? How do I identify it? What sort of tooling can I use now to start scanning my infrastructure, my applications, my vendor applications that I might have paid for, and start having these conversations, like asking vendors, what is your PQ plan? Are you going to transition? Um, because I need to expect that as part of my PQ plan. And so it's about really shoring up that supply chain and figuring out, okay, once I have my itemization of all my crypto, what's next? And then start thinking about how can I transition. Part of that is also figuring out where am I most vulnerable. So where we see customers looking to transition first is how do I secure communications across the open internet rather than stuff that's sort of buried away in my local network. That doesn't have as much of a risk for some of these longer term threats.
That makes sense. So, what would you, if you have a, if you're talking to someone who, a customer who hasn't started their PQ project, um, what would you say to them today?
Yeah, so if you're interested in post quantum cryptography and crypto agility and VMware and Entrust's thoughts on this, I suggest you go check out Project Newcastle. VMware has a number of blogs on our Office of the CTO page where you can learn more. Project Newcastle is in its early incubation phases at the moment, so we're looking to explore and hear more from our customers uh, and partners. So yeah, get in touch.
Thanks, Sean. And definitely check that out, and feel free to visit the Entrust Cybersecurity Institute as well, and you'll see links on the page where this video is posted.